Hi, welcome to My Messy Fingers. I'm working on another album, and this is going to feature STAMPERIA'S Gear Up for Christmas. I am working with 12 by 12 papers. I have 2 of the core and 2 of the background. So the first thing that we've got to put together is the album. Now, having said that, if you have your own album of choice, feel free to make it or use it. I will give you the measurements of the album I'm using so you'll know what to do on your end. And if you've not made an album before, then certainly this tutorial is for you. So you're going to want to have 2 chipboard pieces. They're going to measure 8.5 in your height, and they're going to measure 9 in your width. Like I said, you're going to want to have 2 of those. And then your spine is going to be 8.5 in its height and 1 7/8 in its width. This spine will accommodate 2 pages. So that gives you 4 signatures plus the inside of both the front and the back panels, or left and right panels. So I am lining this in a red that, if you look down in the description, I will have the link to the online store where I get my cardstock. But it's not the only place that you can get cardstock. But what I'm using, I went and bought this from a company called Cardstock Warehouse. It's their cereal plan, and the color is cherry. And this is an 80-pound cover. There's 25 sheets to a package. Get the package because we're going to use almost all of this. And you'll want the 12 by 12 because we're going to be cutting it down, and we want to make sure that you've got enough cardstock to do some of the trimmings I'm going to be doing. All right, so first comes first. I'm going to be putting my panels together. I have a mess written on the other side, so I turned it over. So that when this comes together, we're going to have a 1/4 inch gusset in between the spine and the panels. And this is going to allow for greater flexibility in turning the panels rather than a spine that's only this, or gussets that's only 1/8 of an inch wide. This creates too much of a bundled, it gets bunched is the word I want to use. It bunches up in there. So by going out to 1/4, we're going to take care of some of that bunching. Now, what I use to bind my panels is a product called TYVEK. It is a mailing envelope. It has a great deal of strength and resiliency. If you're using a different kind of binding system, that's entirely your option. But these are going to go to the outside, not the inside. So I need to cut them down, they're too long. But they're going to go to the outside so that when the cardstock comes up against the TYVEK and we're flexing, then the cardstock is flexing against this, so it's kind of floating over it, instead of the cardstock flexing over the chipboard, and this rough edge is where you're going to have some weakness that's going to create some problems down the road a ways. So what I want to do is trim these down about 3/4 of an inch. I don't want this to go all the way to the top, just simply because it creates some bunching that I don't want to deal with. So I always cut them just a little bit short of the top and the bottom. All right, so the first thing, now what I did was, these are 2 inches wide. Let me write this down so that if you have notes for later, that's not what I want to use. Hold on here. Here we go. These are 2 inches by, let's say, 8.5, because like I said, your height is 8.5. You want to be just a little bit short of that, so probably 8 1/4. And then you're going to score at an 1/8, or excuse me, at 7/8. What am I talking about? And then this is at 1 1/8. So you're going to have a score line here at 7/8 and then a score line here at 1 7/8, and you're going to want to have 2 of these. And then what I will be doing is I will be bringing this, I really do want to trim these down a little bit more. So hang tight while I pop on here and do this. Not much of a trim, just enough to get it below that seam. All right, so this is where the spine is going to line up at, and then the panel is going to come and line up, and they're going to, both of them are going to rest right on the score marks on that TYVEK. And then this gives us our good gusset, and that will come into play here in a little bit. So let's go ahead and let's start getting this put together. I start with a spine piece first. And like I said, I'm just going to run right up next to that score line. All right, now we're going to put one of the panels on. And I'm going to line this up to my grid pattern here on the bottom. Make sure it's straight, and then I can come in here and line this up. There we go. Oh! Well, that was a little interesting. That didn't stick. It just had a little mind of its own. Oh, come on. All right, now we're going to add in the other piece of the TYVEK to the right side of the spine. And it doesn't matter if you went left side first or right side first. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and then I'm going to come right in here, move that up a little bit, and lay that down. And now we're going to come in with this piece. Okay, I'm going to line this up on my grid across the bottom so it's nice and straight. And I'm going to come in here and lay that down. Okay, so that so far is what you got constructed for your album, and it is ready for our paper. But the first thing that we need to do is here on the back side, we need to add some tape. So I'm using 3/8 of an inch, and I'm just going to go across the panel. So I'm going to start here on this edge. And where's my thingy-majiggy? And then this edge. And then we're going to go right here. I like to take the tape to the edge because that's the weak spot. Now, down here, I'm going to put it here, and then I'm going to put it in the middle roughly. Doesn't have to be exact. And then we're going to do the middle of each section. Now we're going to repeat that process here. So again, and then the middle, and then the middle. It does take quite a bit of tape. You really want that cardstock to be attached to the chipboard. You don't want it, you don't want to give it an opportunity for it to slip or move. And I just lost my burnishing tool. Oh, there it is. All right, so this is the side that's going to go down against that cardstock. Now, the cardstock is going to look like this. Let me get this out of the way here just a tad bit. All right, so I've got a 3/8 of an inch tape. And this is going to overlap like this. So this is going to become our seam. When you take this, you're going to put that seam in the center of the spine. And you should, once I give you the measurements here, you'll have roughly 1 inch all the way around. I want the seam in the middle of the spine because that's where it's going to give the best support and the strength. But if you move that seam anywhere near the gussets, or it's going to have a weak point. But if you move the seam out here, then that means that your work, you're looking at a seam that's right in that eyes line. So keep your seam here in the center of your spine. Now the measurement, you're going to want to have, well, I'm a little bit off. They should be 10.5. I'm sitting at 10 5/8, but it's no biggie. 10.5 in your height on both pieces. This panel, this piece is going to be at 11.25. And this one where I've taped is going to be at 11 3/8. So now I'm going to connect these two. Make sure they're straight. And I'm just going to follow the tape all the way up. Now, I am on the outside. I'm going to put a rim of 1/2 inch tape all the way around this one side. And the only reason I'm saying this one side or using this side is because it's the side that's up. If you want to turn yours over and attach it to the other side, go ahead. But you're going to want it turned back over so that the tape is on is facing up towards you. Okay. And then All right, so let's burnish this first before we move to the next step. All right, I'm going to put that aside. Now, this is what it's going to look like once we start assembly, but we've got another step we need to do with the tape. We need to put tape on the rim all the way around this. So let's move that cardstock out of the way. And this is so that you've got, when you fold that cardstock over, you've got some good coverage on keeping it down onto the chipboard. All right, one more piece. For a good burnish. All right, so then this is what it's going to look like. Again, keeping that seam roughly in the middle, and you should have approximately an inch all the way around. And I want to make sure that when I do this that I have never learned how to read rulers upside down. Okay, so I want an inch. Do I have an inch here? Okay, that's right, because one of my panels, it was just a little bit taller. So no biggie, because it's getting folded over. All right, so I've got this pretty centered, so I'm going to palm right here. I'm going to hold this down, flip this over, and then I'm going to take off the tape that's on the spine. I don't want to have to readjust, and I don't want to misplace the spine by not securing my position. Because if that goes on crooked, then it's a mess. All right, turned over. Give her a good burnish. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to strip the tape off one side of the panels, but when we go to lay this down, I want you to give a good tug and a gentle pull so that this lays down flat. If you don't and you're not paying attention, you could get an off canter where it's wider at the bottom and smaller here at the top, or it could end up folding like this and you don't catch it. Then you've got all that tape you've got to take off, or you're ruining your cardstock to get to it. So I'm going to start with stripping all of this. And again, that nice gentle pull, and it's going to get laid down. And then burnished. I'm going to turn it over because it's easier for me to do it here. All right, I'm going to do the same process. I am going to take these off. There we go. Good burnish. Get the air pockets and the tape all secured. Now I want to miter my corners. And if you're making your own style of albums and you've got a different way to miter your corners, I'm just using a miter tool that I found online. It gives me something firm to hold on to, and it's got some kind of good weight to it, so it doesn't really move around a lot. I'm not saying that it's perfect. Okay. Throw those away, and we're going to put this up here. Alrighty, so here we are ready to go. Now, we're going to take off a top strip and then all of this, but beforehand we're going to burnish a little bit. Encourage this cardstock ahead of taking that tape off. Encourage that cardstock that it's going to come up and over the top of the chipboard. Now, I have seen in other video tutorials that I've watched that there is a bead of glue that gets put in here, and if you want to do that, that's fine. It's okay. It just adds a little bit of additional adhesive. Now I'm going to pull this tape down a little bit because when I fold this over, oops, hey, forgot the important piece. And now I'm going to push down and turn that corner in, and then I'm going to do that same process here for this end. I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to do this other end. I'm going to go ahead and take that off because it's coming up next anyway. Sorry about that munching sound. This is a glass top that I'm working on, and it's great for a lot of reasons, but it can be a tad bit noisy when you're working sometimes. Okay, let's go ahead and get the rest of this off. I'm going to turn this back around. Sorry for the flip-flopping. Sometimes it can't be helped. Okay, that did not curve in there the right way. So there we go, I think. Okay, so now we're this far. So what I like to do is between these panels, you've got this gusset, and then you've got this cardstock. And to me, that's just when you go to fold these, sometimes it bunches up like it's doing down here and it's not really closing cleanly. So I use my tool. Now you need to be careful because if you're using, this just happens to work because it fits right into my gusset openings, but you can use a large round ball and get in here and just very gently push that in. Be careful not to tear it. If some reason you do, the only thing you can do is glue. Just run a bead of glue over it, seal it off to prevent it from tearing any further. All right, so then when you close this, you don't get that, I don't know if you can see that, you don't get that bunch. And then when this closes, you've got really nice peaks in here. So push that excess in there. Now we're gonna get the pages added on. So I'm gonna want you to cut a piece that is 6 inches wide by 8 3/8. Let me confirm that. I think that was 8 3/8. Yes. I don't like, you can do whatever you want. If you want to cut it so it goes from top to bottom, that's entirely up to you. I like to make sure that everything stays kind of contained in the album. So by coming up just a tad bit short allows for that to happen. So I'm going to tape one side of this, if you'll excuse me just a moment. Fall allergies are kicking in. All right, so I'm going to put tape here, and then I'm going to frame this in tape. But I'm only going to apply tape to about the cardstock piece. I don't want to get to where I'm down here and then I've got tape that's showing. Plus, I'm putting tape on the perimeter, which is going to take care of the attachment up here. Burnish this. Now, when you go to attach this, I have some excess tape here that is not acceptable. I didn't put that on straight, so just 2 shakes while I trim the top. All right, so when you put this on at 6 inches, and this being almost 2, you're going to center this piece so that the spine comes hopefully down the center of it, and you've got equal parts here on both sides. So I like my measurement. I'm just going to pull this up just a hair. I'm going to hold it in place because now it's tough to place it when I'm sorry, I'm just doing it this way because I like my placement. Okay, there we go. You don't have to do what I just did, just that it goes on. Okay, now we'll take some of this tape off around the edges, and I'm just not going to press down and burnish in the tape yet, and I will show you why. I'm just going to let it do its thing and drop into place, because we're going to take the length of this and we're going to I'm going to push it down into the gusset. If you don't want to do that, that's entirely up to you. So I'm going to give kind of a bend so I can see where my seam is. And in particular, I really want to try to identify the seam on the chipboard that's on the spine. You can hear my tape crackling. I've got a little bit bigger, so I'm going to come in here. And in particular, this side. I want to know where my chipboard edges are. It does come into play down the road a ways. Then I'm going to do the same here. Just light pressure, just enough to feel that edge. Identify where it is. And then I'm going to move up, find the other edge. I just punched it. See, that's what happens when you push too hard. But it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. And that's all I can do. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens often enough that I get over myself. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, now I'm going to just burnish this tape into place. Now, when you go to close this, you still have those nice, beautiful peaks on either side. All right, now attaching the pages. This is where this seam comes in handy. So I have cut these the same height, which is the 8 3/8. So 8 3/8 tall. This is a 0.625, a 5/8 gusset. So once you get this height, go in and score at 5/8, and then we're going to put some tape on this, or you can use glue, whichever your preference. You're going to want 2 pages. Now, I get asked a lot, how do you figure out how wide you want your spine to be depending upon the number of pages? I like a 5/8 of an inch gusset. So I am going to take the number of pages that I want, and I'm going to times it by my gusset size, and then I'm going to add 1 additional 5/8 of a gusset to that. So example, if I want 2 pages, it's going to be 2 times 0.625 plus 0.625. That's how I got the 1 7/8. And that is because when you lay this first one down, you've got all automatically built in a 5/8 gusset right there. And then when you put this one in, you have another 5/8 gusset. But what you don't want to do is have this panel sitting right on top of this page. So you want that additional 5/8 of an inch gusset so everything is balanced. And then this also allows for the buildup of the signatures on these pages so that we can do 1/8 inch buildups, 1/4 inch buildups, and then they're not going to interfere with each other. All right, so this seems kind of a silly way for me to do this, but I line my page up, make sure that it acts like it's attached to the spine, and then I want to be roughly 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch off this edge. So now let's see, what does that give us in overall measuring length? We're right at 9.5 inches. So we're going to cut these two panels in their total overall length at 9.5 inches. So I'll be right back. All right, so here are my two pages. So I'm going to burnish these again. I don't remember burnishing them, so I'm just going to burnish them. All right, so my first page. So we identified this seam here on the chipboard piece, and we want to just back off of that just a fraction of an inch. We don't need to be right on top of it, just a fraction of an inch. Put that down. Did that lay down straight? No. Darn it. Okay, we've got to do some surgery here. That undo in there. I'm not sure why that did that. Well, you know what, I'm a fraction of an inch off up here at the top, and it has created, well, okay, I want to leave the bottom, well, I wanted to leave the bottom attached. Okay. Now I'm going to attach this piece. And I'm just going to tack down lightly, make sure that's laying in there straight. And did it lay down straight with this? Okay, that works for me. Okay, there you go. That's your album. So we'll come back and we'll start worrying about how we put this all together on the album for the outside. So we're done building this. We'll do the building of the outside here next. Until then.